You ever get that feeling that life feels a little, well, scripted? Like you're just watching yourself go through the motions, playing a part? Well, today we're going to dive into a framework that takes that exact feeling and just runs with it, turning our whole understanding of consciousness into a kind of game. So let's just jump right into the deep end with the big idea, the simulation hypothesis. This is the theory that our reality, the one we're in right now, isn't actually base reality. Instead, it's an unbelievably complex and sophisticated simulation. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a movie, but this idea has been around for a surprisingly long time. And this isn't some fringe idea either. You've got major figures like Elon Musk talking about how it's almost a certainty. But what's really fascinating is that the core idea is ancient. Eastern philosophies have been exploring this for centuries. They just use different words for it. And that really brings us to the big question for you. If our life really is a kind of game, what role are you playing? Are you an active, aware player making your own moves? Or are you a non-player character, an NPC, just running on a pre-written script? All right, so let's explore this whole simulation idea a little deeper. Thinking of life this way isn't just a fun sci-fi thought experiment. It's actually a pretty powerful way to understand let's call it the operating system of our reality, and how our own consciousness works within it. And this is where it gets really cool. Just look at the parallels here. In Daoism, you have the Tao, which is basically the fundamental law of how everything works. Sounds a lot like the base code of the simulation, right? And then you have the Buddhist concept of Maya, the idea that the world we perceive as an illusion, like a dream. How different is that from a virtual world built from nothing but data and rules? The language changes, but the core idea is shockingly similar. Okay, now we get to the really practical part of this whole metaphor, the difference between player mode and NPC mode. This is where the idea stops being some abstract philosophy and becomes a genuinely useful tool for self-awareness. But first, we need to be crystal clear on what we mean by these terms. Okay, this is absolutely crucial, so let's get this straight. NPC is not an insult. It is not a label you stick on other people. It's a temporary mental mode that every single one of us, and I mean everyone, slips into. It's that state of being on autopilot, when you're just completely run by your internal programming. And this chart just lays out the difference perfectly. Look at NPC mode. Your reactions are totally automatic. Your whole identity is fused with your job, your political beliefs, your social role. You're lacking metacognition, the ability to think about your own thoughts. You don't realize I'm being triggered. You just are triggered. But player awareness, that's the ability to step back. You can actually watch your own emotions and thoughts from a distance. And from there, you can consciously choose how to act. But here's where the game gets really sneaky. The very desire to become a player, to be more awake, it has this hidden trap, a kind of a side quest that's designed by your own ego to keep you stuck exactly where you are. And this is the great paradox, isn't it? The second that being awake becomes a new identity, a new shiny badge of honor you have to show off, that's a huge sign that your ego has just hijacked the whole concept. It's not about dissolving the ego anymore. It's about giving it a fancy new spiritual costume to wear. So how do you spot this trap? Well, you can look for 3 major red flags. First up, hierarchy. Are the labels player and NPC being used to make someone feel superior to others? That's classic spiritual narcissism. Second, anxiety. Is there this constant, desperate need for other people to validate how awake you are? That's a sign it's being used for social points, not real growth. And third, defensiveness. Do they just lash out anytime they're questioned, hiding behind spiritual buzzwords? And this leads us to what is basically a spiritual version of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where a little bit of knowledge can create a mountain of false confidence. So often, the people who have just had their first big insight are the ones who are most certain they've already beaten the game. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what awakeness isn't. So what does it actually look like? Well, the key here is to stop focusing on subjective feelings and start looking for observable skills. It's not about what you know, it's about what you can do with your own mind. So here are 3 concrete things you can actually look for in yourself. First, can you pause your role? Can you step away from your job title or your personal story without feeling a sense of panic? That's what we call ego decoupling. Second, can you deconstruct your own script? Can you look back at an argument you had and admit, wow, okay, I was totally on autopilot there? And third, can you change your play style? And I don't mean just switching political teams or friend groups. I mean fundamentally altering your core behaviors. So here's a powerful little thought experiment for you. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and there's undeniable proof that your most deeply held beliefs, your political views, your spiritual ideas, your personal truths are completely wrong. What's your gut reaction? Is it denial? Is it anger? Or is there even a little flicker of curiosity? That ability to adapt rather than just shatter is a huge sign of mental flexibility, of genuine awakeness. And this is really the whole point. Awakeness isn't some final boss you defeat to win the game. It's not a static achievement you unlock. It's a dynamic process. It's the skill of noticing you've slipped back into NPC mode, which you will over and over again, and then choosing to wake up again. So what's the end game here? What does a truly mature, high-level player in this game's life even look like? Well, the source material uses this great analogy with a Pokemon player. At level 1, you're just consumed by the game. Your rank is your self-worth. A loss feels like a personal failure. At level 2, you get all utilitarian. You're obsessed with stats, efficiency, min-maxing, and just winning the meta. But then you get to level 3, the mature player. This person knows it's a game. They know it's a system of code and rules, but that doesn't stop them from loving the journey, the exploration, the fun of it all. They can love their Pokemon without their identity being defined by them. And that, right there, is the ultimate skill. It's being completely present, completely engaged in the game of life. Your work, your relationships, your passions, without letting your ego get hijacked by all the wins and losses. It's that perfect balance between full participation and non-attachment. And what's wild is that this brings us full circle, right back to that ancient wisdom we started with. The Taoist sage Laozi said it perfectly over 2,000 years ago. The highest form of knowledge is understanding the limits of your own knowledge. Thinking you know it all, that's the real trap. And it's the exact same idea in Buddhism. This scripture is saying that when you can see that all the roles, the labels, the dramas of life, the phenomena, aren't these solid permanent things, that's when you get a glimpse of that aware consciousness that's been underneath it all the whole time. So maybe that's the final thought to leave you with. The real game isn't about proving you're not an NPC or escaping that mode forever. Maybe the goal is just to get better at noticing when you're in it, to have a little laugh about it, and to just keep playing, but with a little more freedom and a little more awareness than you had before.